Hey, what's up guys, it's Theo from Philo Concept. So if you are wondering how to create party flyers for probably, I don't know, this Christmas or some other occasion, then this is the way to do it. Today, I'm going to show you how I created this party flyer in Adobe Photoshop. Let's get started. Welcome to Philo Concept. Click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future videos. Now, as always, I'm using Adobe Photoshop 2021, but I think even if you have the CS6, you should be just fine. You're not going to do anything complicated here. So let's go ahead and open up our application. I'm going ahead to create a new document, and I'm going to make sure that it is a square because I'll be uploading it on Instagram and on WhatsApp if in case you want to use it as a DP and those sort of things. Having it in a square form is the way to go. So I'll make sure mine is set to a width of 2K and a height of 2K, 2000 by 2000. This is what I always use, and my resolution is set to 300, and I'll click on create. Now, if you're not new to this channel, you notice that I group my stuff a lot. So let's create a new group. I'll click on this icon right here, which is the third icon from the right, to create a new group, and we are going to just call it background. I also like typing in caps. So now that we have the background, we are going ahead to create a gradient fill. So go into the adjustment panel here and click on gradient. Now the first option that comes is over here where we have the gradient. I'm going to set mine to basic. Basic is just when you click on the first one, you have foreground to background, and this is what we want to use. So I'll double click on the first icon here, double click or just click once and click on color, and I'll select a specific color. So let's say I want a match purple color, something like this. Click on OK, and I'll select the end, click on color, and this time around, instead of the purple color I can sample from here, I can go for a much darker color, probably somewhere around here, and click on OK, and click on OK one more time. Now, I don't like the linear form I have here. It looks cool, but I don't like it. So I'll use the radial. And as you can see, we have the purple color here fading into the darker portions at the edges. And I'll just click on OK. This is what I want. This looks quite nice. Now, in case you don't have your rulers, you can use Ctrl-R to bring them up. You see them up here. And I've changed mine to percentages. You can just right click and send it to percentage so that I'll know when I'm at the center. And that is what I'm going to do. So I'll click and drag to the center like so. It should snap in at the 50% mark. Now, there are other things I would like to add in. So let's create a new layer. Click on the new layer icon right here. And I'll select the white color, which is also here. And I'll click on the brush tool, which is also here. Now, in the brush settings, go into window and set for brush settings, or press F5. Now, this is going to open up this dialog box or extension. So I'll click on shape dynamics. If you go into that option, I'll increase the size jitter to a lot. Then I'll go into scattering, and I'll also increase the scattering to a lot. And this is what I have. Now, if I click and drag, this is what we get. I think this is looking quite cool. So what I'll do is I'll increase the size of my brush to probably 200 and just click and drag one time, something like this. If you don't like it, you can just try a couple of times to something you feel comfortable with. Now, once I'm done, I'll just reduce the opacity to about 20 or probably just 10%. Yeah, I think 10% looks cool. You know what, let's go crazy. Let's make it 5. And I think this is okay. Let's call this brushes or brush particles. All right, now since we have these, I think we are cool with the background. Let's create something more. So I'll click on the create group icon, and this time around I'll call it images. So let's add in our first image. The actual images I have in here, this is what I was presented with. So this is the picture I'm supposed to use, but it's a bit hectic if you have to. You know what, let me just open it up in Photoshop and show you what I'm talking about. I think it will be a lot easier when I'm displaying it rather than talking about it. My PC is taking quite some time to open. All right, so this is what we have. If I grab the zoom tool and zoom in, under normal circumstance, getting this out of the background is going to be a lot difficult, so you wouldn't be using the quick selection tool. Obviously it's going to be a lot difficult, so the best tool to use in my opinion is the pen tool, which you should find somewhere around here, or press P on your keyboard. So with the pen tool selected, let me zoom in a little. I'll just click, drag, click and drag, click and drag. Wait, there was something I had to mention. If you're using the pen tool to create this shape, you have to make sure that it is not a shape, it is a path. So you know what, let's delete what I just created. All right, so up here where we have shape, change it to path in case it is not already set to path. So I'll click and drag, click and drag, click and drag. You'll be doing this over and over until you have a selection around the subject. So maybe around the area you want, probably this is it. So you have this whole selection. Let me zoom out. Maybe it's just the head you want. Then with the pen tool still active, right click and go to make selection. Don't bother about this and just click on OK. So it's going to create a selection around that place. And this is what we want. This is the actual way to create a selection using the pen tool. I believe this is much better. But because I don't want to prolong this tutorial, I have already done that, which is in this new layer here. So as you can see, I have my brush. Sorry, I have my layer mask. If I turn it off and on, this is what I have. So I've already created my selection, and this is what we are going to use. It's not actually even perfect. So let me see if I can make some adjustments. Now, I have to go back to the brush settings and make sure that these things are checked off, else I'm still going to have that effect. So let me take away this portion. I think something like this. If you did a perfect job, you don't really have to go through this, but apparently I did not, so I had to just go through it all again. Now, if you want to know how to create layer masks and everything related to that, I already have a tutorial linked below. Yeah, you can go through. It's more like the basis for Photoshop, so you wouldn't have to stress yourself with this. So what I'll do is with the move tool selected, I'll click and drag and bring it over to my workspace here and drop it in here. This is huge. So let's reduce the size to, I think something like this should be fine. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, I think something like this is cool, and I'll just click on the check mark right here. So let's close this up, we don't need it, and let's close this up, we don't need it. No, let me go ahead and save this. Probably party flyer tutorial. Try to save your work as much as possible, because Adobe they have a reputation for crashing at any point in time. Anyway, so this is what we have. The next thing I'm going to add in is actually some, you know what, we'll add in the effects later on, but let's add in our text first. So I'll create a new group which should be on top, and let's call this text. Now create another group inside this group and call that, if you just want to rename, just double click on it, and I'll call it let's call it main text. Now for the main text, that is going to be the biggest text on our flyer. You know what, let me reduce the size of this just a little bit. I think something like this. Yeah, something like this should be okay. Now for the main text, I'll be using a font called Kilogram. If I don't forget, I'll leave a link in the description below. And I'm going to now make sure I'm typing in the main text folder. Now what I'm going to do is type in the information, which is models and bottles. So let me bring bottles in here like so, and let's increase the size, which is up here as in the font size. Let's just click from where we have the smaller T and the big T, even though they are all caps. Just click and drag to your right, and it's going to increase like so. Now I don't like the color. You know what, let's set it to white for a second so that we can see what we are doing. So what I'll do is I'll highlight these two, go into window, click on character, which should pop up somewhere here. And what I want to do is I want to bring these two texts together. Now you can see they are a bit apart. I want to bring them together. Instead of typing one after the other, I can just use this simple trick. So highlight the one at the bottom, go up here where we have the A, one on top and one beneath. This represents the spacing between the text above and the text beneath. So I'll just click and I'll just click to the left, click and drag to the left, and you can see this controls the spacing between them. I think somewhere around here is just fine, and I'll click on OK. Now let me go ahead and get the color for this. This is the color I'm going to be using. In case you want to use something similar, it's FB9C04, and I'll just click on OK. So this is what I have. I think this is looking cool. Now I'm going to add in a stroke to this actual main text. So go into FX right here, make sure that the text is selected, go into FX, click on stroke. Now I'm going to add in a stroke of about 20. You can go ahead and change however you want it, but I think 20 is okay for me. And the position is set to outside, the opacity is set to 100%, and the blend mode is set to normal. Also, the color is set to white, not any other weird color. I think white looks good for this. And I'll click on OK, and before I click on OK, I'm going to add in a drop shadow, which should be somewhere here. As you can see, this is what we have. I just want to give a little bit of dimension to this. So I'll set the opacity to about 50, the distance to about 30, and the angle about 145 should be just fine. Now, this is what the angle means. It's supposed to be somewhere here or there or whatever. I prefer 145, sometimes 135, but it all depends on what you want to use it for. And I'll just click on OK. So this is what we have. This is the before, the effect, and this is the after. This is looking quite cool. Now it is not just models and bottles. It's not just models, bottles. It's actually models and bottles. So we have to add in an extra text, which is the and or the ampersand sign. So I'll just click somewhere around here and I'll type it in here like so. So this is it. Probably reduce the size a little bit to like 18 points and change the color to like white. All right, now I'm not going to be, you know what, if I grab the move tool and I put it somewhere here, you can hardly see it. This is not what we want. Now this is why shapes are important. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add in a shape to make it differentiate a little bit from the actual text. Now I'm going to use none other shape than the circle. So to do that, you have to use the ellipse tool. So if I go into the shape options here, I'll select the ellipse tool, which is right here, and I'll create a circle whilst holding down the shift key so that I get a perfect circle. I think something like this is cool, and I'll release. Now if I bring this beneath, let's change the color to, I don't know, probably let's sample this purple color or make it black. I don't know, something dark should be just fine. Now use the move tool to bring it somewhere around here, and let's see what we have. Okay, so let's select these two and I'll position it to somewhere I feel comfortable with. Now let me go ahead and save this again because Adobe can crash at any time. Anyway, so let's add in the rest of the information. That is going to be in other text. So new group, double click, call this other text. Now instead of boring you with so many texts, I'm just going to speed ramp it, or yeah, let's just fast forward from here. Alright, so I'm done. These are all the information I'm going to be needing, and I have to make some few adjustments. Now I did forget to mention that the fonts I'm going to be using for every other text apart from the main text is going to be the Gotham fonts, which I have been using on this channel for quite a long time, so please bear with me. Now over here, I think this is an important information, so I'll make it about 14 points. I'll change the Gotham font from bold to say ultra. Then I'll be doing basic things to basic information like this. I'll also make it ultra, and I think the location is also important. I'll also make it ultra. Now it doesn't really mean I have to keep everything at 12 points, so probably 10 should be just fine. Now I can also leave a space in here like so, and I think this is looking cool. Now, just as the other thing I was talking about, I want to have a little bit of separation from the text. So instead of just leaving a space, I'm actually going to create a line in between them. So I think somewhere here, oops, let me come again, click somewhere here. So instead of just leaving a space, I'm also going to add in a line, and to do that I'll be using the line tool, which is right here. Now I have to change the color from this orange color to a white color, obviously, and I think a weight of about 5 should look okay. Now let's click and drag and see. I'm holding down the shift key so that I get a perfect horizontal line at 0 degrees, of course. So I think this looks nice. Let me zoom in using the zoom tool, Z on your keyboard. I think I'll place it somewhere around here. Now I'm going to create a duplicate. So instead of using Ctrl J, I'll hold down the Alt key and just click and drag, whilst holding down the Control and the Shift, of course, so that I get even spacing, or I've forgotten what it actually does, but the Shift makes it move in a vertical direction without moving to other side. Maybe I should just show you. So instead of, if I don't hold down the Shift key, this is what I get. But if I hold down the Shift key, it aligns it perfectly, like so. This is what I'm trying to explain. Anyway, so basically this is what we have for the information. There are a bunch of other information like sponsors, which I'll add in here. So I'll create a new group, probably call it sponsors. I hope I got the spelling right. Then I'll spell it out again, sponsors. I think this is also an important information. Now instead of using the white, I'll probably use the orange color from here, and I'll paste it somewhere around here, like so. I'm not convinced with this. You know what, let me make the spacing a little bit. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. So let's add in our sponsors. Now these are the couple of images I have in here. These are the sponsors. So I just click and drag and drop everything in there like so. This isn't the right way to do it, but I mean, why not? Now this is what I do anytime I have to add in a sponsor. Let me put it in the group. I create a square, so something like this, while holding down the Shift key to get a perfect square. Now I'll be using the rectangle tool, of course, and I'll use the move tool and put it somewhere around here. How many sponsors do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so an even number. Now let's make this square much smaller. I think something like this should be just fine. All right, so since there are 6 sponsors, I have to create 6 of these squares. So I'll put one here, I'll put the other here. Let's select all 3 and Control Alt click them somewhere here so that we have all of them in one line. Now I'm also going to try and position this at the center like so, and this is what we have. Now I'm going to have every single sponsor on top of a rectangle, and I'll explain in a second. Let's just do that first. So this will come up here, this will come down here. So one on top of the other, this on top of that, this will be on top of this one, this will be on top of that, and that, and that. So basically this is what I have. Now let's bring all of them back up. Now what I'm going to do is create something we call layer mask, or clipping mask actually. So I'll be creating a clipping mask which will mask it directly on where the shapes are, so that they don't move away from what I have. Now again, let's do it so that you get a better understanding. So let's fit this to screen. So if I click in between the image and the rectangle, you see that we have this new icon here. If I click on it, it creates a clipping mask. Well, you have to hold down the Alt key before you click. If you don't want to go through that, you can just right click on the image, go to create clipping mask, and it is going to mask it. So basically any of the two should work. Either you hold down the Alt key, click in between, or just right click and go to create clipping mask. Anyone should work just fine. So we are going to start from the top. The first one is here. So where is our mask? No, I should probably turn everything else off so that it's going to be a lot easier to identify. So it should be this one. All right. So let me zoom in a little and resize it to fit my rectangle. I'll be doing it for a couple of them, then I'll fast forward again so that I don't have to waste you guys your time. So this is also going to be somewhere here. Have it like so. So let's fast forward from here. All right, so we have our sponsors now. If you want to go ahead and add in like a stroke or something like that, I think you can, but I'm not too comfortable with them. So I'll just leave it as this. Let's resize this to make them much smaller. All right, so this is what we have. Now there are other information like the date and the time. I can also place them in a new group. So let's call it dates and time. Now to do that, I'll just have it in here. So time is spelled, you know what, I will be using the left align option, which is up here. Time is spelled TAM blah blah blah. And I have 20 o'clock GMT. Then we have the date 20/11/21. Now, in case I didn't mention this earlier, this is an actual flyer for an actual program. This actually happened. I just felt I should create a tutorial about it now. So what I'll do is I'll use the rectangle tool and I'll create a rectangle around the date. The text time, and I'll bring this, you know what, let's bring it beneath. Double click and select our orange color again. Then what I'll do is I'll create a duplicate. So the second one is going to be somewhere here. And I'm actually going to change the font color for these two. So I'll make them black and I'll select this and also make it black. Why not? So basically this is what we have. In case you have other information, you know what, let me just duplicate this using Ctrl J. Then I'll use the move tool to bring it somewhere here. And let's change in the information. So we have hosted by something ladies, so exquisite. Yeah, I hope I get the spelling correct. Exquisite divas. So if I zoom in, instead of having this rectangle here, I'd rather stretch it out like so, and I'll delete this one. So basically this is what we have. There are other information in here, but I don't want to bore you guys so much. This tutorial is already getting too long. So I'll skip to the most important part, which is the effect. Now I have an effect around the lady right here. Some of you may ask how I created it, so let's just go through that. So I just use the rectangle tool, which is somewhere here. Right click on it and go to rectangle tool, and I set it to, well, I actually didn't set a fill color, but I just created a rectangle like so. Then I use my move tool to place it at a place I feel comfortable with. I think something like this. I rotated it a little bit. I place it somewhere around here. We are supposed to have it behind the lady. So you know what, let's call her model. So this is the first rectangle. Then I actually change the fill to 0. So we have no fill. You can actually see that the rectangle just vanished, but it's still there. Don't worry. So I go into FX and I'll click on outer glow. Then the glow I used was actually white. So I'll set it to a white color from here. Click on OK. Then make sure that it's set to screen. The blend mode is set to screen. The opacity, you can leave it to whatever you want, but I feel comfortable with about 50. Yeah, 50 looks fine. Then I think that was the basic thing I did. The size, let's go ahead and set it to 50 as well. And I'll click on, you know what, why don't we just go crazy? Let's just increase the opacity. And instead of just a solid white color, let's probably select a much purple whitish thing. Then I'll just click on OK and click on OK. Now once I'm done with this, I'm going ahead to duplicate this. So using Ctrl J to create a duplicate, and I'll select the one beneath because why not? Then I will rotate it. So let's go back to that rectangle, rotate it. You bring your mouse cursor over at any of the corners and you'll be able to rotate it once you get this rotation angle cursor. So I think something like this is okay. Probably reduce the size to something like this. And I feel this is looking much clean. Now within the images, there are other images. You know what? Let me just group this and call this model. And create another group and call this other images. Now let's go ahead and import the few images. So there's a bottle and there's a glass. Let me paste them in here. I've already applied what we call the Gaussian blur. If you don't have that, just go into filter and you see blur and click on Gaussian blur. Then apply about 10 or 5 pixels to it, depending on what you want to use it for. So I'll select the glass, which is this right here, and I'll place it somewhere around here. I'll duplicate Ctrl J and I'll place the second one somewhere here. Probably just rotate it a little bit and make it much smaller and place it somewhere here just to fill up those extra spaces in here. Then I'll do the exact same thing for the bottle, something like this. Ctrl J, rotate, and I'll place it also somewhere here. They are there, but they are not actually there, just to fill up those edges. So basically this is what I have. I think this is looking quite good already. But one more thing, that is the final part. I promise this tutorial is already over. And those are the effects. So I'll create a new group and I'll call this effects. This is the last thing I do anytime I create a flyer like this. So with the effect, I'll be using the polygonal lasso tool, which I have here, and I'll create something like this. I'll start at the extreme end, maybe left bottom should be fine, and I'll click to the right top, and I'll create a rectangle like this. So click here, click there, and double click at the bottom to create something like this. And I'll go into the adjustment panel and I'll click on gradient. Now in the gradient, I'm going to set the color to white. So double click on this, set it to white. Double click on this, set it to white. You don't really have to do this if your foreground color was already set to white. Mine wasn't, that's why I have to do it. Then I'll angle it to about 135. Then I'll reverse the, now this is how it looks like. I'll reverse it and I have something like this, looking quite nice. So I'll place it somewhere around here. Yeah, I think this is looking cool. And I'll just duplicate using Ctrl J. I'll use my move tool and I'll bring this here, and the other one should be here. Duplicate one more time. So about 3. Yeah, I add in about 3 and I think I'm looking quite good. Not me, the flyer. So the last thing is I create a new layer and I'll change the blend mode, which is up here, or blending options in some cases, to screen. I'll select a color, maybe this purple color, somewhere around here, and I'll select a brush. I'll select the brush tool. Let's see what it looks like. It's quite small, so I'll make it much bigger, something like this. I still think it's too small, so right click and probably make it about 500 pixel. Let's see. Okay, this is looking cool. Now the color is a bit too bright, so if I click on it, you notice that it is a little bit too bright. I don't want that, so I'll make it much darker, something like this. And I'll click and check. Okay, now this is looking quite good. So what I'll do is I'll place this somewhere here around the neck area, duplicate using Ctrl J, or just use the Alt key and click and drag. I'll place this somewhere around here. I'll do it one more time, place it somewhere around here. So this is what we have if I turn off and on the effect. This is looking quite cool. There's also one more last thing. I promise this is the last one. I go into the adjustment panel, click on gradient. Now you notice I already set it to black, so I don't have to go through again. So I'll select the radial and I'll reverse it and I'll increase it to a scale of 1000. So we create this form of vignetting around this whole area. This is before and this is after, before and after. So on the original flyer, you notice that I added in the dress code, and in case of table reservations, the information I should probably hide these phone numbers. Anyway, so basically that is it. This is the whole tutorial for how I created this. Alright, so that's about it. If you're interested in getting this exact PSD template, I'll have it linked in the description below. Unfortunately, it's just for Ghanaians only. So yeah, if you're not in Ghana, you have to go through the tutorial. Sorry about that. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to watch more of our videos, hit that subscribe button, and as always, don't forget to share with your family and friends. This is Theo for Fino Concept, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.